What's up, retirees, and welcome to year 2026. This month in January, everybody's thinking about, well, what I'm going to do different. How am I going to make a resolution to do whatever I have to do? Usually it's about, I got to lose this weight, whatever. Mine is more like resolving to do a the better job of serving you. That's my resolution of doing a better job of serving you. And I need to do that as a matter of habit. And so immediately made me think about a book that I've reviewed before that you may not have read. If you're in my age group, 65 plus, you may have encountered this amazing book by Stephen R Covey called The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. So I'm going to go over that and I'm going to kind of bring it up into a 2025 context here and talk to you directly about challenging you and challenging me to really get it right this year. So without further ado, here we go. So the book is called The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And it really spoke to me years ago. I look back and it was way back several years ago. I actually presented on this, but I'm going to go ahead and review it again because it's just as relevant today as it was 5 years, 10 years ago. And it's about building effective habits. And there are three parts to this. Um, the desire, first of all, you really got to have that desire. You got to be active, proactive enough and want and need to do this. Realize that this is what you need to do. Hey, I need to do a better job of this as a matter of habit. And you need to know what to do and why to do it. And you need to develop skills. That's really what I'm working on. I'm actually working on a course called Navigating Your Unretired Life, but I'm doing my YouTube channel first. So this is a good time to subscribe to my channel. If you haven't done so already, because I'm going to be covering things that I haven't seen anybody cover it as clearly and as definitively on the whole and all of YouTube than my channel. My channel is dedicated. It's called Navigating Your Unretired Life. So this is really what it's about. And these are internalized principles that have to do with building your character. Wow, that's a term that hasn't been discussed very much. It's usually been how do you manipulate someone or how do you do this hack or something like that. But this is it's old school, but it's actually should be new school now. So I'm going to go to that. And there are basically three kind of major phases, and they have these seven habits. And I'll talk about that. The first stage is kind of like as you're growing up, and as you're developing yourself and you're developing your independence. So when you come into the world, you're dependent upon parents and society is teaching you how to be this way and be that way. And uh and so what you have to do first of all, and you have to do this now, even now at this age, is achieve some private victory first. And that's these three major habits that I think I'll go over here. And the first one is not sitting back but actually being proactive. Proactive is really kind of the neat deal. And he has an interesting experiment he talked about that was done at the Harvard Business School several years ago, where with one group of people, the professor said, "See this younger woman in this image," and so you can look at this and see a younger woman with her head turned sideways, kind of seeing her jaw and her nose and all that. And then another group and another class was told to see the same image as an old woman. And bam, you look at this, and now you see, instead of the chin, you see this nose and these two eyes of this older woman in the same image. And the lesson is how easy it is to be told to see what to see. And we're told to be a certain way, particularly as we're older at 65 plus. We're kind of like, you're an old fart and get back. And then you watch TV and some of the ads are just kind of really ageist. I just don't like some of those ones. The ones at the insurance say, don't you want to not be like your parents? They're trying to sell you insurance. And they use all these kind of stereotypes of what they think you are. But to get the lesson is critical thinking. How do you learn how to discern what you're seeing here? So this is a good lesson here of achieving that. And one of the first, we talked about in between, instead of just reacting to a social mirror, just reacting to what you see in the news, or just reacting to you're being told, in between stimulus and response are a whole number of skills and things to learn about. If we need to make a paradigm shift involving the seven habits, we have to move to a freer and more self-aware, effective life. And so in between stimulus and response, we have freedom to choose what we are aware of, your self-awareness, your imagination, your conscience, and your independent will. And part of your character building is not just to be like a Pavlov dog, stimulus response, but thinking about things and doing the right thing. So to develop habit number one is to increase our response ability. You see how he breaks that into two words? Very nice idea. And one of the things that have been on my mind since I grew up, since I, became a young adult, is an expanding circle of concern here. Um, my family I come out of a black, African American family that had to get out of racism and move to California and start a new life and do all of that. And I have, all of these issues of concern, but my circle of influence has been smaller. And so part of that is to work on this in these habits one and two and matters so I can enlarge my circle of influence, become this, so that I can begin doing things. That's one of the reasons why I'm involved with distance learning, with communications, and online learning to expand my circle of influence with these amazing tools that I'm working with. I'm doing this over Zoom right now, and it's really, really fun to do. Because one of the things you want to have that habit of, besides being proactive in your decision making, is to begin with the end in mind. They used to call this, other training I've been to, they call it the tombstone test. I mean, what would it be like if people are standing over your grave or over your memorial, your ashes, to say what will people say about you? What do you want people to be able to say about you? Are you just another one of those boomers who just trashed trashed the world and left it to the rest of the generations, or were you a different kind of a boomer that left home a legacy of really positive change, and you honored your ancestors and your family for all of the good that they did? And what matters most, it's kind of like a hero's journey. This is kind of talking about these three parts. If you watch my previous video, you talked about the story I want to tell. It's kind of the hero's journey of starting out and then discovering the challenges and then coming out with solutions and slaying the dragon and resolving and living happily ever after, in the basic way here. And so in the book, he has ways of making a kind of a life management, time management thing where you can work on the very things that you need to do here. So in my personal development, I have all these habits I have to develop, and it's something that you can do for yourself. This book is amazing. There are other roles too. I am a husband and a father. I want to be a better better job of that. And I'm a CEO and Chief Learning Officer of my own remote consulting practice and virtual enterprise. And I have books inside of me, so I need to work on them as an author. I have a deep love of music, so develop myself as a musician. I'm teaching myself jazz piano, and just there's some really interesting things here. I'm kind of an artist here. I have pottery that I've done in ceramics, and I need to go back to that. I'm not going to get too much angst here. I'll take time to kind of integrate that into my life. And so he has this whole quadrant planning process of how to do this. I, in my last video, I talked about this in the book Creative Calling, which is that same four quadrant life management and time management matrix of making sure that you work on the things that are important, but not that urgent. That's really where it is in terms of me developing my YouTube channel and my business here. And of course, paying the bills that are urgent and important. But some of the things that are not important and not urgent, just eliminate them, get them out of there. So, sometimes it's good to take some entertainment and binge watch with my wife on TV sometimes at night to chill, but that's all part of it. That's important still. So more time, the more time we spend in each week doing this, the more that we're going to get there in these 12 months. Now, he makes a distinction in terms of this putting first things first of going from being just a mere producer to a manager of your time. A producer can invest 1 hour of effort and produce 1 unit of results, assuming there is no loss in efficiency. Well, that's if you're watching a lot of shorts, then you might lose in efficiency. But if you become a manager and learn how to manage all those things, all those balances, those things I talked about, you can actually get more output. So that you can invest 1 hour of effort and produce 10 to 50 or even 100 more units of quality through stewarded delegation. Right now, I'm delegating my mind to certain things, not functions of my mind to do certain things at certain times of the day, even including meditation, which really helps me refresh myself. So you have that whole process of moving all the way up here. And another habit, the habit four. So once we've gone to those three, then we start moving into interdependence. And he talks about these two these two axes of consideration and courage. And the thing that is the highest thing is where we create win-win. You think win-win for not only for you, but for your customers and people that you want to, not like our president who is always I win, you lose kind of a deal, which is kind of old think and ends up not being good for him or our planet. I'll stop right there. But it's having the courage to say, hey, look, I'm into win win. You can't say, we lose. We have to win for the planet. We've got to come together as a people across generations, across races, across genders, across market sectors, across the planet. And you have to think, one habit number five is because seek first to understand and then be understood. I need to really understand, if even for people that I don't necessarily agree with, I need to know where they're coming from. What makes them think this way? What made you vote for this man? What were you thinking when you did this? How are you thinking now? And you have these kind of, you have men and you have women, and men and women have to work it out. Straight people and gay people need to work it out, and in betweens, and progressive and conservative people left wing and right wing people need to work it out. Pro vaccine and anti vaccine people need to work it out. People who, at this time, when I did this several years ago, was I don't want to wear a mask because that's trying to force me into stuff. And then other people said, yeah, but you can wear the mask if you want to get sick and get COVID. And then there's the dove versus the hawk, and coming to peace. We've seen so much war, and we need to resolve that. And then there's been, over history, there's been the non-Christians and the Christians have been the whole thing of in Europe and between the Middle East and all that, and then between the believers and the non-believers, and everybody has something that they care about, and that's it'd be considered a belief or a feeling. You could say, "Well, I'm not into this religion; I'm into science." Well, there's a whole, there's bringing these worlds together in terms of the language that we use and the understanding that we have. And so I really like I'm in a faith community where there are people that are kind of with all this Christian faith, but they're also looking at different other faith traditions, Taoism, in Buddhism, in indigenous religion. It's really neat. And I really like this Taoist way because you kind of see an intersection of the yin and the yang, hot and cold, and how that all balances out, and each has its own center within centering of the whole deal. And fishing, the Buddhists have a expression called fishing for the third alternative. And in philosophy, Hegel had talked about the synthesis, in terms of this dialectics of thesis and antithesis resolving into synthesis, and then that keeps spinning. And and I'm here to kind of level. The other one is called the habit six is called synergizing. And so you have these two axes again between in trust or cooperation. And so if you have low cooperation and low trust, you have this kind of defensive win lose or lose win kind of mindset. And if you move on and get more trust, at least you have some respect here. And that's the beginning of some compromises here where you have more trust and you have a higher sense of cooperation. And then the highest part, the win-win, is a synergistic one where you find common ground and you figure ways to work it out. You end up with a new mindset, a new way of looking at each other and the world around you. And then finally, the other habit, the seventh habit, it has to do with it's called sharpening the saw. And it comes from a quote by Abraham Lincoln. If I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. Which means for me, all those habits I'm working on again to sharpen. I've been working on each one of those habits, not very well, but I'm now sharpening my saw, which in this way is to really look at this to deal sharpen your habits with your body, your mind, your heart, your spirit, and the job is way harder if the tool is dull and you don't take time to sharpen yourself, sharpen your mind. I think the most important thing right now is the mindset that you have, and the understanding that you have, and the support community that you help build and help nurture. And that's what I'm working on. So, one of the things I'm working on is New World Communications, which I launched in 1997 at age 50. And you do the math. I'm going to be turning a big 80 in February. And I am so full of joy in terms of this journey because I'm having a good time on that journey and reaching out to people and building community and finding out what people deeply care about and creating that win-win feeling and situation here. So that's my end in mind. and I intend to accomplish it before my memorial service, before my tombstone test. And the sharpening the saw is kind of like an upward spiral. You're not going in the same loop, but you're actually spinning this. You're doing here in a smaller here, but here's you see this looking dimensional as I'm certainly expanding my circle of concern to my circle of influence. It goes like this. I keep learning and making a deeper and deeper commitment and connecting with people like this, and it spirals. It feels so good to raise your mind, to deepen your heart, and to sharpen everything. And I think the world really does need all of us now. So here's some next to dos that I would recommend that you do. View this entire series again and focus on what it could mean for you as a matter of habit. I know you're thinking about it. Most people are. Usually what happens is they abandon it by February. They say, oh, I guess it's too hard for me to do. I love my beer. I love my chips and blah, 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 my donuts, whatever. And so they kind of blow it. But if you have support and you actually there's actually a different component with spirit that has to do with understanding that there is a how to tap into the law of infinite supply, which has a deep spiritual connection and all about creation. And that's what I'm getting to here, and I want to be able to share that with you here. The other is weigh in and thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down in my YouTube player here. Okay. And make a comment. What about you? Let me ask you, what are you resolved to do? What could I help you with? What to help you get there? Is it making more money if you're retired? Do you want to find something that's really fun and give you a sense of meaning and purpose? Maybe it's volunteerism, or maybe it's a craft, or a skill, is photography or pottery or music or writing and drama, or getting that book out finally, or you know going to great places, enjoying this planet that we have. Whatever it is, I would really like to know. I'd like to meet you. I'd like to know how you're doing. So that's what that's about. Buy that book and dust off the copy you may have already have. I went to my bookshelf and I said, "Oh, that's the book I remember. Let me go dive into it. It's just as relevant now as when it was written several years ago." So thank you, and let's connect because you matter. The job is way harder if you try to do the tool that are dull and you don't take them, sharpen yourself, and you don't connect with other people. So the goal is to enlarge your circle of influence on things that matter to you, understanding and having daily private victory in habits 1, 2, and 3, and it matters to me to enlarge my circle of influence here. So coming attractions here is join our opt-in email list. You can go to my website, newworldcom.com, to our contact us page, and you can really talk to me. You can do a Zoom call with you, receive a complimentary 3-minute consultation to help you be more effective. And you might want to pre-enroll in our online course that will be coming up soon, and revisiting that book and a master course on one-on-one coaching that we're working on, and much, much more on the way. So I'll stop my share. If you need to contact me, you can text or call me at 206-920-8067. You can email me at support@newworldcom.com, and you can visit my website at newworldcom.com. Also, you can visit my YouTube channel called Navigating Your Unretired Life. This is for you to navigate yours and to have having a ball doing it. So thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you.